which will return in 1 minute. The Wells Report returns in 30 seconds. North to south, coast to coast, around the world. This is the Wells Report. Good morning, I'm John David Wells. What do we do on this broadcast? We report the news honestly and fairly. We analyze the news for fact and bias. We point out both. We make commentary. That's not news. That's opinion, both yours and mine. And so we debate. News, analysis, commentary, and debate. This is the Wells Report. Thanks very much for joining us. It is Friday. I hope you have a great weekend planned. And as you will find out later, we will begin our Christmas vacation with the end of today's show. And we'll tell you that we're going to be back on January 2nd. In the meantime, what do you say we find out what's been going on and what it means? Time now for the front page on the Wells Report, a digest of news that happened since yesterday's broadcast and while we were asleep today. There was a horrific shooting in Prague, the Czech Republic. The Czech Republic is reeling from the worst mass shooting in the nation's history after a gunman fired shots into a university building in the capital city of Prague on yesterday, killing 14 and injuring more than 24 others. Quote, "It's a horrible crime, something the Czech Republic has never experienced," said Czech Interior Minister Vít Rakušan about the deadly massacre, which prompted an emergency government meeting yesterday evening. Unlike the United States, mass shootings are rare in Europe. The tragedy in Prague could shake the nation for years and possibly shape the nation's approach to gun control in the future, according to international gun violence experts. Out of Colorado, after praising the Colorado Trump decision from the Supreme Court of the state of Colorado, media is now reversing itself. This from Fox News. Several mainstream media outlets published pieces this week arguing the Colorado Supreme Court's decision to bar former President Trump from the state's primary ballot is a gift to his reelection campaign. Columns in CNN, the LA Times, and a report from NBC News insist that the state Supreme Court's invocation of Section 3 of the 14th Amendment to remove Donald Trump from the ballot does the opposite of blocking him from being president again. In fact, it gives him a boost. That's how the LA Times columnist Mark Barabak described the 4-3 ruling in the piece titled, "Colorado decision striking Trump from the ballot is a boost, not a setback for his campaign." In the Tuesday column, Barabak wrote, "Donald Trump received an early Christmas present courtesy of the Colorado Supreme Court." He said that though the decision had been seen as something to be celebrated by Democrats and Trump foes, in longer terms, the ruling may well be moot. There are calls now for President Biden to denounce the Colorado Trump decision. This from Fox News. A growing number of political commentators and experts are calling for the Biden administration to denounce the Colorado Supreme Court's removal of former President Donald Trump from the 2024 ballot, arguing it could be a strong political move for him. If President Biden were smart, he'd denounce the Colorado Supreme Court ruling. This is according to former White House Press Secretary Ari Fleischer posting on X. He'd call it wrong and show confidence he can win without throwing Trump off the ballot. Fleischer went on to say he won't do that because he's too afraid of the progressive left and too weak to stand up to them. Alex Conant, the founding partner of Firehouse Strategies, told Fox News Digital that Biden should do everything he can to distance himself from these efforts. The more partisan those efforts look, the more it will help President Trump. Also in Trump news, USA Today is reporting that there is a Trump recording showing that Trump put pressure on Michigan election officials. Former President Donald Trump pressured election officials in Michigan not to certify the results of the 2020 presidential election, according to the Detroit News. Trump and Republican National Committee Chairwoman Ronna McDonald called two Republican members of the Wayne County Board of Canvassers, the body that certifies election results for Michigan's most populous county, home to Detroit, to urge them not to sign off on the results, according to a recording of the call reviewed by the Detroit News. Quote, "We've got to fight for our country," Trump reportedly told Monica Palmer and William Hartman on November 17th, 2020. "We can't let these people take our country away from us," unquote. The report sheds new light on the Trump campaign efforts to contest the election results in key swing states and comes amid two criminal cases against Trump at the state and federal level related to election interference. Regarding the southern border of the United States, the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, has asked President Biden for executive action on that border. This from USA Today. House Speaker Mike Johnson urged President Joe Biden to overhaul the federal border control policies and to return to Trump-era asylum standards in a letter sent yesterday. The call comes as the White House, Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, and a bipartisan group of senators have been negotiating for weeks to strike a deal on border security changes, which Republicans have said they'll need in exchange for additional aid to Ukraine. The Senate adjourned for the year on Wednesday of this week with no deal in hand. Quote, "The wide open border has caused unspeakable human tragedy for migrants and certainly for our own citizens," said Speaker Johnson. "All of this is the direct result of your, President Biden's, administration's policy." He asked President Biden to take executive action to end a policy that allows migrants to be released on parole without exact court dates, to renew construction of the border wall, to turn back or detain all undocumented immigrants between ports of entry, and to work with Mexico to restart a program that keeps asylum seekers in that country while they await processing in the U.S. Quote, "The crisis at our southern border has deteriorated to such an extent that significant action can wait no longer. It must start now. It must start with you, Mr. President," so said Speaker of the House Mike Johnson. While we're on that subject, Leslie Wolf, the former U.S. attorney who allegedly worked to limit questions about Joe Biden, has denied politics played a role in the Hunter Biden investigation during her interview with the House Judiciary Committee, this being reported by Fox News. Former Assistant U.S. Attorney Leslie Wolf, though, testified that she would, quote, "not be permitted to answer most of the questions you have for me due to the ongoing nature of the federal criminal investigation into the first son." Wolf, who recently left the Justice Department, a decision that long predated allegations against her, was subpoenaed by the House Judiciary Committee to appear for a deposition. Wolf appeared before the House Judiciary Committee last week for a voluntary transcribed interview after the Justice Department negotiated terms with the panel. Fox News has reviewed a transcript of the interview. This happened last night. After the interview, House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan of Ohio said, quote, "Wolf refused to answer most of our questions," unquote. "She refused to answer based on instruction she was given by the Justice Department," according to Jim Jordan. IRS whistleblowers Gary Shapley, who led the IRS portion of the Hunter Biden probe, and Joseph Ziegler, a special agent within the IRS Criminal Investigation Division, alleged that political influence surrounded prosecutorial decisions throughout the Hunter Biden investigation, which began in 2018. Harvard, still in the news from the Academy, Carol Swain has called for Claudine Gay's immediate ouster. This from Fox News. A retired Vanderbilt University professor and allegedly one of Harvard President Claudine Gay's plagiarism victims has now called for the immediate firing of the embattled higher education leader to steer the university back towards sanity. "Fire Claudine Gay post haste," said Dr. Carol Swain, posting on X as part of a social media post that was titled "Some Free Unsolicited Advice for Harvard University." Ms. Swain went on to say that she can be relieved of duties until the terms are negotiated. Swain is a senior fellow at the Institute for Faith and said the Ivy League university must hire the best man or woman for the job who can, quote, "steer the university back towards sanity," unquote. Yesterday, Swain also recommended Harvard University have a sit-down conversation with the academics who Gay plagiarized from and apologize to alumni, students, parents, and donors who have been harmed and embarrassed by President Gay's behavior. Have a sit-down conversation with the people who have been harmed by plagiarism from Gay and also the system that protected her. Recognizing Harvard's systemic racism and classism has far-reaching effects, said Swain, apologizing to alumni, students, parents, and donors who have been harmed and embarrassed is a good first step. Now, technology. Maine has been forced to delay a vote on their electric vehicle mandate because of electrical blackouts. This from Fox News. A top Maine state environmental agency delayed a highly anticipated vote to approve sweeping electric vehicle mandate amid a storm that caused widespread power outages. The Maine Board of Environmental Protection announced that it had indefinitely postponed the meeting, which was slated for yesterday afternoon, until further notice. Following the storm, Democrat Maine Governor Janet Mills, who pursued an aggressive green energy agenda, declared that a state of emergency existed last week, an action that closed state government offices. Governor Mills declared a state of civil emergency for 14 Maine counties following a significant wind and rainstorm that left hundreds of people without power and caused significant flooding and infrastructure damage, including to town and state roadways, according to the Maine BEP. Also in technology, there's an autonomous helicopter out there, one that you can buy if you'd like. It's the RD-550X, a revolutionary helicopter from Rotor Technologies. It's special because it's the first of its kind to be designed for civilian use, not military or law enforcement. It can perform a variety of missions such as crop spraying, cargo delivery, firefighting, surveillance, inspection, mapping, surveying, research, exploration, entertainment, and more. However, the 550X is not designed to carry people at this time. Rather, it's an experimental category uncrewed aircraft. It can also fly autonomously without any human intervention using advanced avionics that makes it possible for artificial intelligence to be used in free flight. It can also operate in any weather condition, day or night, and communicate with the ground or other aircraft using multiple data links. According to the company, these systems make the helicopter more stable and easy to operate, eliminating the cause for over 70% of helicopter fatalities today. The company says the software can prevent common causes of helicopter accidents, such as inadvertent entry into instrument meteorological conditions, vortex ring state, mast bumping, loss of control, and controlled flight into terrain, which was the cause of the accident that killed NBA great Cody Bryant. And finally, on the front page this morning, the TSA has found bullets in a baby diaper. CNN reports the TSA officers found 17 bullets wrapped in an otherwise clean baby diaper. Thank goodness. This happened earlier this week inside a passenger's bag at New York's LaGuardia Airport, according to the agency in a news release. The hidden 9mm ammunition was discovered after a male passenger's carry-on bag triggered an alarm in a TSA Transportation Security Administration checkpoint's X-ray machine. In its news release, the TSA referred to the discovery as new definition of dirty diaper, and added that apparently this guy needs a bulletproof plan for packing his carry-on before heading to the airport for his next flight. The passenger, an Arkansas resident, initially said he did not know how the disposable diaper filled with bullets got into his bag. Then he suggested that his girlfriend must have put it there. Port Authority police were notified, according to the TSA. The man was cited for unlawful possession of the ammunition. And that is today's front page. Of course, the first thing I saw when I saw the story of the TSA bullet-filled diaper was, good heavens to Betsy. They didn't force-feed that baby bullets, did they? And it was also good to know that the diaper was otherwise clean. Trying to figure out just exactly why someone would put bullets in a diaper in the first place. I mean, does this look like a setup to you? I'm just thinking. I could be wrong, but then again, I'm just a suspicious old coot. This is the Wells Report. Thanks very much for joining us. It's Friday. We'll be back with more coming up in just a moment.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost.
Nobody wants to get ripped off, broken into, or robbed, but nobody wants to pay a lot of money to have their home protected either. I've got an offer to tell you about to provide home security for your home for less than $1 a day. For real, with no installation or equipment charges. And this is from a company rated #1 by a leading consumer research company. According to the facts, most of you won't even call unless there's a burglary in your neighborhood or something bad happened. So let's give you a reason. Save money. For less than $1 a day with no other costs, you can get your home secured. Plus, get a lifetime equipment replacement warranty. You need protection for your home. Call the Home Security Hotline right now.
Get your home secured for less than $1 a day, and every caller today immediately qualifies for free installation. Call now.
Call 877-275-0973. 877-275-0973. That's 877-275-0973.
This is the Wells Report. Good morning. I am John David Wells, going through the news, and there is news from the Middle East. Hamas has rejected an Israeli ceasefire offer because apparently it would require them to release more hostages. NBC News has been on the case. As a matter of fact, Molly Hunter has filed this report here on the Wells Report this morning.
Tonight, as Israel intensifies its war against Hamas, a new report: Hamas has rejected an Israeli offer for a week-long ceasefire in exchange for the release of dozens of hostages, including remaining women and children, Egyptian officials tell the Wall Street Journal. Today, Hamas announcing they refuse to hold any talks about releasing hostages without a more permanent ceasefire, something Israel and the U.S. have said would be a surrender to Hamas after it killed more than 1,200 people in its October 7th terror attack.
There have been serious talks and negotiations over trying to get back into another pause and a hostage exchange.
Inside Gaza, the airstrikes in the southern city of Rafah are relentless. Why have you left us behind? This little boy says to his father. Why, Dad, why? Tonight, the UN sounding the alarm on acute hunger, reporting 500,000 people in Gaza are starving. And this week, the WHO delivered critical supplies to the overwhelmed Al Ahli hospital in the north.
It's a somber shell of a hospital with people just waiting to die.
Also today, the Israeli military says they have killed 2,000 Hamas fighters just this month.
Molly Hunter from NBC News near the Gaza Strip. And so, once again, there is huge suffering, humanitarian suffering in the Gaza Strip. But once again, this is what happens when you wage war with a sovereign country and they take you up on it. This is what happened. Yesterday, we reported that there are now voices among Palestinians that are criticizing Hamas for essentially awaking the Israeli giant and bringing all of this pestilence on the Hamas people. Those voices are getting louder, and hopefully that they will lead to some kind of a Palestinian regime change for what is the de facto government of the people of the Gaza Strip. Let's hope that that is the case. It would be something that I believe would be beneficial for both Israel and the people of the Gaza Strip. The question is, what's going on with the Palestine Authority? It used to be known as the Palestine Liberation Organization, the PLO, but that was a bit combative. So they've changed it to the Palestinian Authority. Now, it's the same group of people. And this indeed, the idea that Hamas is rejecting an Israeli ceasefire is both, on one hand, typical of Palestinians refusing to take yes for an answer. And then there's another situation here. Hamas cannot release those hostages without sealing their own death warrants. And so they're stuck. What they're doing is they're hoping that they can keep enough hostages under their control until world pressure forces Israel into a ceasefire without them having to give up anything. That's the only way they can see themselves keeping themselves alive, and that is probably valid. While it's human nature, the inhuman nature of what they've been doing speaks for itself. I was also struck in this particular report by Molly Hunter, who did a fabulous job on this thing, when that little boy walked up to his dad and said, "Why did you leave us behind?" Well, because we follow Hamas, son. And Hamas apparently likes to leave its people behind, using them as shields and doing whatever necessary to keep themselves in business. This is a very, very sad dynamic for the Palestinian people. Somebody said, the Palestinians are the most highest educated per capita population in the world. Imagine what they could do if they weren't under Israeli oppression. And I sat there and said, well, what would they be able to do if they decided to stop hating Jews and start pursuing the disciplines they learned for their PhDs? How about this? How about let's get into the world and let's start making a contribution instead of being a constant source of terrorism, sadness, and death. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Stick around. We'll continue with our broadcast in just a couple of moments, as the Colorado decision is backfiring mightily on the American left.
Nobody wants to get ripped off, broken into, or robbed, but nobody wants to pay a lot of money to have their home protected either. I've got an offer to tell you about to provide home security for your home for less than $1 a day. For real, with no installation or equipment charges. And this is from a company rated #1 by a leading consumer research company. According to the facts, most of you won't even call unless there's a burglary in your neighborhood or something bad happened. So let's give you a reason. Save money. For less than $1 a day with no other costs, you can get your home secured. Plus, get a lifetime equipment replacement warranty. You need protection for your home. Call the Home Security Hotline right now.
Get your home secured for less than $1 a day, and every caller today immediately qualifies for free installation. Call now.
Call 877-275-0973. 877-275-0973. That's 877-275-0973.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost. How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right, for about $50 a month, you'll get lightning fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back, but you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now.
Call 866-245-6155. That's 866-245-6155. Again, 866-245-6155. 866-245-6155.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
News, analysis, commentary, and debate. This is the Wells Report. I'm John David Wells. Oh, what a difference a day makes. Yesterday, the mainstream media said that the decision by the Colorado Supreme Court to remove Donald Trump from the primary ballot in their state was a triumph. It was a triumph of jurisprudence. It was amazing. It was the very best thing that they could have possibly done. Well, that has seemingly changed. Okay, hold on just a moment. Okay, hold on just a second here. As I'm working to try to get something. This is so funny. It's actually not funny, but it's funny in a way that I've been working on this computer to try to stop all of this mess. And after 2 days, it still hasn't worked yet. So I've got to go to the very the very serious people involved in Apple Care, which, by the way, is without doubt the very best customer service in the history of human beings. It absolutely is, without doubt. And that situation has made itself once again extremely and annoyingly a problem on this broadcast. So while I scramble around to try to get myself back together, then what we'll do is I'll just muddle until I get there from here. And please do forgive me for going through all of this. Now, so let me go back and start over. Left-leaning journalists and media outlets yesterday expressed their support for the Colorado Supreme Court decision to remove former President Donald Trump from the 2024 primary ballot, condemning those who might oppose the move. Although many of these talking heads, including the Lincoln Project's Rick Wilson, anti-Trump commentator George Conway, the New York Times' Mara Gay, have spent years claiming that Trump's actions are a threat to democracy, they reiterated their support for the Colorado State Supreme Court trying to quash democracy in their own state by evoking one section of the 14th Amendment in order to be some kind of a pretext to remove Donald Trump from the ballot. The only problem with all of that is that that they were actually adjudicating the 14th Amendment. That's the job of the Supreme Court of the United States. There are a lot of things going on with regards to that particular decision that now the mainstream media is backing away from. Today in Fox News, several mainstream media outlets published pieces arguing that the Colorado Supreme Court decision to bar former President Donald Trump from the primary ballot is a gift to his reelection campaign. Columns at CNN, the LA Times, a report from NBC News now insist that the state Supreme Court's invocation of Section 3 of the 14th Amendment to remove Donald Trump from the ballot does the opposite of blocking him from being president again. It gives him a boost. We'll see with current polling information that's probably being done as we speak. That's how LA Times columnist Mark Baraback described the 4-3 ruling in the piece titled "Colorado Decision Striking Trump from Ballot as a Boost, Not a Setback for His Campaign." In the column earlier this week, Baraback wrote that Donald Trump received an early Christmas present courtesy of the Colorado Supreme Court. He said that though the decision had been seen as something to be celebrated by Democrats and Trump foes, quote, "In the longer term, the ruling may well be a boost for the former president." The columnist said a perceived assault on the insurrectionist ex-president by a Democrat-appointed Colorado Supreme Court, no less, will make him only more sympathetic to the GOP base. His support in the polls soared last April after the first of 4 indictments. Baraback continued, describing the court's decision as another attempt of an easy out for Democrats and their Trump problem. Quote, "They're counting on rulings such as the one in Colorado or legal efforts underway in California and other states to banish Trump from the ballot and end his threat of a return to the White House. But there's no easy shortcut to the short circuit of Trump's comeback that was perpetrated by the Colorado Supreme Court, notwithstanding the exultation over that court's decision." He concluded by saying Democrats will have to beat him at the ballot box, as they should. A courtroom is no place to decide a presidential election, which is exactly what the Supreme Court did in the year 2000. In a column published at CNN, University of Pennsylvania political science senior lecturer Damon Linker proclaimed the Colorado Supreme Court's Tuesday ruling as a breathtakingly foolish move. That was something that echoed what I said earlier this week on the Wells Report. He told readers that he considers Trump an aspiring authoritarian who poses a serious threat to democracy in America. However, he noted the idea that the 14th Amendment can be used to keep him from office is an illusion. Linker said Trump fundamentally represents a political problem, which means he can only be beaten in the political arena. Efforts to take him down by other means will only make him stronger. The author then explained that for a standard politician, such a ruling could end their career. However, a populist like Trump can use the ruling to further fuel his populist narrative. the us versus them theme that drives his support. Linker also claimed the courts in other states are sure to follow the Colorado decision, which will only make Republicans trust the judicial branch of our country even less. Quote, I can't think of a series of events more likely than this to shred the legitimacy of the judicial branch of our government among Republican voters, and for good reasons, he wrote. Look, this is something that not just Republicans should be thinking about. This is also something that all Americans, Democrats, everyone should be thinking about. What kind of a country do we want to live in? Do we want to live in a judicial oligarchy? Is that what we want? Do we want to live in a place where unelected jurists can make decisions for the people of a state or even a nation? The answer is plain. We do not. We absolutely don't. This is a very bad day for those people who believe indeed that that was a good move. I said it was a huge mistake. It was a huge mistake. Because what it does is it opens the door for this leftist narrative that somehow the 14th Amendment actually provides a remedy to Donald Trump. It does not. There are 5 sections of that amendment. Indeed, those 5 sections cover a lot of different things, but the first thing it covers is that any citizen of the United States will have the privileges of citizens of the United States, including due process. There was no due process in this decision. No oral arguments occurred with the Colorado Supreme Court. They didn't sit down there and listen to both sides and then make a decision. They just all got together and decided, hey, the January 6th thing is, it's all about insurrection. And so what we're going to do is we're going to rule on what is nothing more than hearsay. Nothing more than hearsay. And that's exactly what they did. That is legally bankrupt. No court in the land operates on hearsay evidence, except, of course, no criminal court does, except, of course, in civil cases, where the preponderance of the evidence is the basis. And that can include hearsay evidence. But the situation here is that's the Colorado Supreme Court. There have been people, including former Attorney General Bill Barr, who said yesterday it's quite possible that those Supreme Court justices, all graduates of Ivy League universities, those 4, indeed violated their oaths of office by not upholding the Constitution of the United States. Now, is that going to go anywhere in the very liberal state of Colorado? Probably not. But the only thing that I can say is that seems perfectly understandable to me. This is a violation of the Constitution of the United States, and no state court has ever ruled directly on the Constitution of the United States. The Constitution of the United States belongs, as far as the judicial interpretation of it, with the Supreme Court of the land. That's it. Now, with all of this involved in this court decision, a couple of things have happened. One, the Colorado Supreme Court has usurped the Supreme Court of the United States, and the Supreme Court of the United States will act. In fact, there are people saying, we got to be perfectly honest here. The Supreme Court of the United States is the sole arbiter of the Constitution. That's that. The other thing is this. What it did was it gave a total illumination to this leftist crazy interpretation of only one section of the 14th Amendment, Section 3, that says insurrectionists cannot serve in the in an office of the United States government. Now, people who immediately defended President Trump, former President Trump, after the ruling said that, yeah, but the Section 3 doesn't refer to the president. No, but it does refer to government offices. Why? Why does Section 3 refer to government offices? And certainly the presidency is one of those offices. Why does it exist? Because this 14th Amendment was created after the Civil War, 158 years ago, for crying out loud. And that was to keep former government officials of the Confederacy of the United States would forbid them from running for government office in the United States, which is reasonable. What's unreasonable is when the talking heads, including the Secretary of State of the state of Colorado, immediately said, well, you know, these Confederates were traitors to the United States of America. And so Donald Trump is also a Confederate. No, Donald Trump is older. It's true. But he's not 158 years old. He had nothing to do with the Confederacy. And the idea that in this particular campaign season, we have not only seen the left trying to portray the MAGA movement as the Nazi movement from the Second World War and before, now we see them as trying to cast, going back even further in world conflict, going back even further to try to cast President Trump and the MAGA movement as Confederates. Yeah. This was something that I put up a couple of weeks ago. I've talked about it a lot in the last few months, where these people that say we're trying to protect democracy, if Trump takes office, my God, it'll destroy democracy. No, it will destroy democracy, which is the leftist manipulation of everything they possibly can get their hands on, executive branch agencies, and now even the 14th Amendment of the Constitution of the United States? Seriously? They're just twisting everything in order to make it a political possibility to try to defeat Trump by other means except by the ballot box. Look, the people of the United States determine who the president is. They are the only people in this country that can do so. Is that some brave statement by some guy that hardly anybody in the United States actually knows? You know, because you're here. Is that one of those statements that I just concocted? No. No, that came from Thomas Jefferson. You know who he is, right? Third president of the United States. It was in all the papers. Yeah. Yeah, this is plain, simple, straightforward, etc. There are a lot of people that are saying, hey, you know what we need to do more than anything? Not only does the Supreme Court need to swat this aside rapidly, the Supreme Court also needs to do so with one voice. In other words, a unanimous opinion. Now, many people believe that there is a political part or a political faction in the American judiciary. They would be correct, because there are Republicans and Democrats who act in partisan fashions in the federal judiciary. But this, by the way, is an outgrowth of that. This Colorado Supreme Court has seen decision after decision after decision from the Supreme Court of the United States that are based solely on politics. There is a conservative wing of the Supreme Court of the United States. There is a liberal wing, or what's called a liberal wing. It's actually an illiberal wing of the Supreme Court of the United States. And regardless of how many times Supreme Court Justice John Roberts says, they're not left judges and right judges, we're all judges. I'm sorry, sir. With all due respect, well, actually, that doesn't mean anything. With sincere respect, sir. That's baloney. And we all know it. So after seeing the Supreme Court act in political fashion, the Colorado Supreme Court said, well, we can do that too. Well, no, you can't. No, you can't. As a matter of fact, that thinking is just plain bankrupt. So will the Supreme Court of the United States actually act with one voice? I don't know, but they will act. There is a deadline out there. There's time pressure on this decision by the Supreme Court. The ballots must be printed by January 5th, or at least go to printing on January 5th to be available to the people of Colorado. So I would suggest that the Supreme Court will act sometime before January 4th. And they have to. This is absolutely irrational. It is a foolish mistake. It is a completely foolish and silly error. And all I can say is that error is going to visit itself on the Supreme Court of Colorado and all the other states considering following in their footsteps.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right, for about $50 a month, you'll get lightning-fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back, but you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now.
Call 866-245-6155. That's 866-245-6155. Again, 866-245-6155. 866-245-6155.
This is the Wells Report. John David Wells at your service. There is, I was just talking about the fact that indeed the Supreme Court of the United States should, in this particular decision regarding the Colorado Supreme Court, act with one voice. I'm not the only one saying it. In fact, George Washington University's brilliant professor, Jonathan Turley, weighed in on Fox News.
More fundamental and frankly chilling. You know, this country is the most successful and stable constitutional system in history. Now, after 2 centuries of that, what these 4 justices have done was to introduce a destabilizing element in that system. This may be the ultimate challenge for Chief Justice Roberts. I don't have much question they will overturn this decision, but they should do it unanimously. They should do it in one voice, all 9. Not divide on this. It's too important not to speak as one.
Absolutely correct. That's Jonathan Turley. This has gotten to be not just a realization of huge mistakes by leftist jurists, politicians, mainstream media people. This is turning into such a big mistake. A growing number of political commentators and experts are now calling for President Biden to denounce the Colorado Supreme Court decision to remove President Donald Trump from the 2024 ballot. Quote, "If Biden were smart, he'd denounce the Colorado Supreme Court ruling," said former White House Press Secretary Ari Fleischer. he'd call it wrong and show confidence he can win without throwing Trump off the ballot. But he won't do that because he's too afraid of the progressive left and too weak to stand up to him. The smartest move for Biden would be to direct the DOJ to oppose Colorado's efforts to kick Trump off the ballot. This, according to Fox News host Laura Ingraham. Democrats in Colorado are removing President Trump from the ballot because the Democrat Party opposes democracy, which is a system where voters go to select their elected leaders. This, according to Republican Congresswoman Mary Miller, posting on X. Biden and the media actually believed, if Biden and the media actually believed in democracy, they would denounce this immediately. This is bipartisan. There are 4 Ivy League graduates in the United States judicial system under the auspices of the Colorado Supreme Court that made this decision. The Ivy League, once again, looking more like an enemy of the people as opposed to a servant of the people. And that's just plain as day. So Jonathan Turley says that now's a good time for President Biden to convey the image that he cultivated in the election, which was to be the president for all people. This would be a very good move for the president to do so. James Freeman Clark once said that a politician thinks of the next election. A statesman thinks of the next generation. It's time for President Biden to show he can think of the next generation and oppose this insidious ruling. Now, it's not just from commentators on the right. We've been discussing, although Jonathan Turley argues that he is solidly in the middle of the political debate when it comes to legal circumstances in the judicial branch. But Alex Conant is the founding partner of Firehouse Strategies. He told Fox News that Biden should do everything he can to distance himself from these efforts. The more partisan it looks, the more it will help former President Donald Trump. David Avella, who is the chairman of GOPAC, told Fox News the issue goes beyond President Biden. He says, quote, Americans need a 9-0 ruling from the Supreme Court justices to send a definitive signal that the Colorado court's action is unconstitutional. But by the way, it won't just send a message to Colorado. It'll send a message to all these other states that are trying to figure this out. And there is one very important point that must be made one more time, certainly on this broadcast, and it is as follows. The Colorado Supreme Court empowered itself by using Section 3 of the 14th Amendment to somehow move forward with declaring Donald Trump without a trial, without argument, without even much deliberation, that he should not appear on the Colorado state ballot. Well, other states are considering that too. Well, how about this? The evidence behind all of these charges against Donald Trump have yet to be proven in court. No jury has sat. No judge has ruled. It just hasn't happened. And so this is all innuendo. This is all rumor. Very much like the rumor and innuendo, as it stands now, being focused on President Biden. But if this is the new way to adjudicate the Constitution of the United States and guilt or innocence, then why in heaven's name won't red states immediately empower their Supreme Courts to rule on President Biden? There is strong, at least proposed evidence that says President Biden is guilty of bribery. Now, I'm not going to debate what's worse, bribery or insurrection, because they're both outrageous. But all I can tell you is that if this is the way the game's going to be played, then immediately red state Supreme Courts need to start cases against President Biden, because he's been accused of high crimes and misdemeanors, like people say President Donald Trump has been accused of high crimes and misdemeanors. Well, by all means, let's just go ahead and take them all off the ballot. Part of that is not unattractive, to be honest with you, because when it comes right down to it, we sure need different leadership in this nation. Although I'm not exactly sure we should throw the Trump baby out with the United States bathwater. But these are points that have to be made and considered by all Americans. We have to stand together. The people that run this nation are adept at splitting us apart. How about this? Let's all stand together on this one like we're asking the Supreme Court of the United States to do. Hour number 1 done. Hour number 2 next.
How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right, for about $50 a month, you'll get lightning fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back, but you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now.
Call 866-245-6155. That's 866-245-6155. Again, 866-245-6155. 866-245-6155.
Nobody wants to get ripped off, broken into, or robbed, but nobody wants to pay a lot of money to have their home protected either. I've got an offer to tell you about to provide home security for your home for less than $1 a day. For real, with no installation or equipment charges. And this is from a company rated #1 by a leading consumer research company. According to the facts, most of you won't even call unless there's a burglary in your neighborhood or something bad happened. So let's give you a reason. Save money. For less than $1 a day with no other costs, you can get your home secured. Plus, get a lifetime equipment replacement warranty. You need protection for your home. Call the Home Security Hotline right now.
Get your home secured for less than $1 a day, and every caller today immediately qualifies for free installation. Call now.
Call 877-275-0973. 877-275-0973. That's 877-275-0973.
Hey, thanks for joining us this morning for the Wells Report, and make sure you share us with all your friends on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Rumble, Patreon, and don't forget to check out our Substack column, which will be coming up a little bit later on this afternoon. When you do all this, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you give us those thumbs up. They are really important. Check the notification box so you know when we're on the air, and whatever you do, join us every morning, Monday through Friday, 9 to 11 a.m. Central Time, for the Wells Report.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost.
North to south, coast to coast, around the world. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. On this broadcast, we report the news honestly and fairly. We analyze the news for fact and bias. We point out both. We depropagandize the mainstream media. We do make commentary. That's not news. Commentary is opinion, both yours and mine, and so we debate. News, analysis, commentary, and debate. This is the Wells Report. By the way, my just a personal note, if you're new to the broadcast, first of all, welcome. Second, my ego is not tied into absolutely having to be 100% correct in everything that I say. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm an honest guy. And so I report the news faithfully and honestly, just like I said a moment ago. But from time to time, I make a mistake. And while I'm not 100% accurate, I'm close. Somewhere between 98 and 99% of the time, I get this exactly right. However, I pay attention to people who interact with this broadcast, specifically on X, Jack Rakeb. Jack Rakeb has pointed out that indeed there was a trial before the Colorado Supreme Court. Each side was given 5 hours to present evidence of their opinions. Then the panel of judges made a ruling. I don't know that that's true, but rather than just ignore Jack and what he said was indeed there was a trial before the Colorado Supreme Court, even though it's not confirmed, I'm not casting aspersions on Jack. I'm sure he's honest too. The thing about it is that I'd rather put that out there just in case that it's absolutely true so that you have better information. This show's about fact. This show's about fact and truth. And all I care about is that truth. And if Jack can contribute to that effort, then that's why I read what I just read. Now, there is news that is, well, it's raising eyebrows. The Detroit News has reviewed a recording of a call that was made by former President Donald Trump and Ronna McDaniel, who is the chairman of the Supreme Court. Excuse me, I'm sorry, not the Supreme Court. She is the chairman of the Republican Party. Apparently, what happened is that these two made a call to Michigan County election officials in 2020. Now, there is indeed reporting on this. It comes from CNN. You need to take this with whatever grain of salt you think is appropriate. But let's take a look at it now. This from CNN. So let's roll that.
According to this report, which is just breaking, the chairwoman of the Republican National Committee, Ronna McDaniel, was also on the call and then told the two canvassers, quote, "If you can go home tonight, do not sign it. We will get you attorneys." And that's when Trump replied, quote, "We'll take care of that." Craig Mauger, who broke this story, is for the Detroit News, joins me on the phone. Craig, I just had a chance here to read this as this is crossing your breaking news. I just want to emphasize here, this is at best time the President of the United States on tape, recorded for 4 minutes of a longer exchange, talking, pressuring these individuals. You've heard much of this tape. Can you tell us what you hear Trump say?
What I heard listening to the audio of this conversation was the then President of the United States encouraging, pressuring, contending, arguing in favor of these two Republican county canvassers not signing the certification of the 2020 election for Wayne County. Wayne County is a Democratic stronghold in Michigan, and it's the state's largest county as well.
So is there anything else, that could have happened in the other minutes of the call, or how are you aware of exactly how long the call was, or anything else that you may not have heard that could, I don't know, change the context here or add context?
We heard 4 minutes of what could be an up to 11-minute call, according to Verizon phone records that were previously obtained by the January 6th committee. We don't know what was said during the entirety of the call. We do know that the Wayne County canvassers have previously, the two Republican Wayne County canvassers, have previously said that the call was simply just Donald Trump thanking them for their service on the canvassers, and nothing. They have said previously that they didn't remember anything specifically being stated about the 2020 election. They didn't remember that. The recordings that I have reviewed show that the call was heavily about the 2020 election and very much about the certification vote that had just taken place.
Now, that wasn't necessarily as partisan or biased as you might think. As soon as you hear me say the words CNN, both Aaron Burnett from out front on CNN, and also the Detroit News reporter, also were very careful to stick with the facts on this one. Indeed, Aaron Burnett brought up, is there a possibility there's something exculpatory? Which brings me to this. You'll note that this particular recording came from where? That's right. It came from the January 6th committee. The January 6th committee famously, a few months ago, said that all the evidence and interviews and so on and so forth from our deliberations and our investigation were lost. Well, they weren't lost. I was very skeptical of the fact that this information was lost. It's not lost. But there's also something else. This is an 11-minute phone call. You're only hearing 4 minutes of it. So the cherry picking of January 6th evidence to present to the people of the United States continues to this day. I dare say that since there was news reported on this broadcast that said that information from the January 6th committee was all lost, it's not lost. That also bespeaks dishonesty. My problem with the January 6th committee, and it was absolutely unnecessary at every level, was to totally exclude the other side of the conversation. Why would they do that? Why would they do that? Well, because the other side of the conversation was at least as evocative as their side of the conversation, so they left it all out. That is how you propagandize any particular given news story, and that's what's happening now. I'm not accusing CNN or the Detroit News of propaganda. They handled this reasonably well. They do indeed have to report this story. But remember, as the very good journalist from the Detroit News pointed out, what I heard was a 4-minute excerpt of an 11-minute call, and it came from the January 6th committee. And so we don't know what else happened in that particular phone call. I'm not saying that there was any exculpatory information that would, say, for example, turn this entire story some other direction. But I also can't report to you that there isn't exculpatory information that would turn this entire narrative another direction that is not what the people and people like the January 6th committee would want you to have available to you. Now, that being said, take this for what it's worth. Is there a former president of the United States in the midst of what is a questionable election? And it is questionable. Is there any reason for that president to reach out and say, hey, what gives? That is a decision that has to be made by not just the powers that be in the justice or judicial branch of our government, but also has to be made by you and me. I am not agitating for you to change your mind if you think that President Trump is as guilty as the day is long. I'm not saying that. All I'm saying is that this information that you're talking about here, that we're talking about, is cherry-picked. It's edited. And because of the January 6th decision not to have the other side of the question even considered, it is suspect. There's also one other aspect to this. Where did this telephone call come from? Where did it come from? Well, the January 6th committee, you just said so. Yeah, but where did they get it? As reported by the journalist from the Detroit News, they got it from Verizon. Big tech, once again, doing their best to try to interfere with the decision-making process of the people of the United States. This creates a whole other kettle of fish or bucket of worms. So obviously, Verizon has access to every conversation by any human being on their network. And given the right provocation, they'll release it to the authorities of the government of the United States. That's wiretapping. Moreover, it's illegal wiretapping. Yes, people have pointed out that there have been calls by President Biden to his son that indeed were shared with the people of the United States. That was wrong too. That was an illegal wiretap. All of this is illegal unless politics are concerned. And so the political process, which, by the way, I am not blaming on the left or Democrats solely, because the Republican Party hates Donald Trump too. Politics is one coin with a left side and a right side, but it's a single coin. And so these people really don't want to do anything to stop Verizon from releasing information that is okay in their possession, but none of their business. For a huge amount of time prior to the 9/11 attacks and the Patriot Act that went because of the 9/11 attacks, that came about because of the 9/11 attacks, it was illegal, so illegal to wiretap someone without a warrant that people went to jail for doing it. Every executive branch agency was strictly forbidden to take this information and then turn it into something that is, sadly, political in this age. But that's not the case anymore. Not because the Patriot Act, the creation of the Department of Homeland Security, the breaking down of the walls between international intelligence agencies and the FBI has been disastrous. The Patriot Act was about nailing international terrorists doing evil work in the United States. As I have watched this act being used, I've seen it being used against private citizens. I've seen it being used against county commissions. I've seen it being used against people of the political opposition. And that is absolutely, abundantly wrong. Now, I'm not trying to evade the fact that President Trump made this phone call. But everybody's pointing at Trump. Well, Ronna McDaniel was on that call. She's also a part of this. But that's not what anybody's saying. Because Ronna McDaniel, she represents the orthodox Republican Party. And as I said, that party hates Trump too. And so the mainstream media, they don't want to cast aspersions on Ronna McDaniel. She's the one that brought up the lawyer. She's the one that brought up, hey, just stop what you're doing. But they're all blaming it on President Trump, who was on the call. Because they don't want to damage Ronna McDaniel. They want to damage Donald Trump. That's the way I see it. How about you? Telephone number 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. So yeah, I see this as a manipulated mess. Just another manipulated mess in this amazing season of the 2024 election. What do you think? Let me know. 817-379-2172.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost.
Nobody wants to get ripped off, broken into, or robbed, but nobody wants to pay a lot of money to have their home protected either. I've got an offer to tell you about to provide home security for your home for less than $1 a day. For real, with no installation or equipment charges. And this is from a company rated #1 by a leading consumer research company. According to the facts, most of you won't even call unless there's a burglary in your neighborhood or something bad happened. So let's give you a reason. Save money. For less than $1 a day with no other costs, you can get your home secured. Plus, get a lifetime equipment replacement warranty. You need protection for your home. Call the Home Security Hotline right now.
Get your home secured for less than $1 a day, and every caller today immediately qualifies for free installation. Call now.
Call 877-275-0973. 877-275-0973. That's 877-275-0973.
This is the Wells Report. John David Wells at your service. The Czech Republic is reeling from an horrific mass shooting, the worst in its history. The BBC has a report on that. We're going to bring that to you now here on the Wells Report as a sad day unfolds in the city of Prague in the Czech Republic.
The center of Prague was suddenly transformed into a major crime scene. Armed police rushed towards a university building as a gunman stalked the corridors there. At this point, he was still on the loose. And these were the scenes at Charles University. Desperate students clinging for their lives to a ledge, their fear of falling overtaken by the fear of the gunman meters away on the roof. As the shooting began, students had to barricade themselves into classrooms, told to hide with the lights off. Down below, crowds scattered in fear, ordered to clear the area and take cover, although many had no idea what danger they were running from. Prague is full of tourists this time of year. Some described hearing shots fired and panic. Multiple ambulances were sent to the scene. Some of those injured are in a very serious condition.
So the gunshots weren't obvious at first. I remember the first one, and I sort of looked at Joe and I said, "Is that?" Almost questioning myself. And then you saw people running and heard a few screams, and you thought, "Can't be." You tell yourself almost, because you see it on the news, and you always think, "I don't believe it." No, you always think you're not going to be in it, in that situation. And then you hear another one. And another one, and we're like, and then we hear the police sirens, and then it becomes clear that we need to get out of here.
The attacker has been named now by local media as David Kozak. They say he made disturbing posts leading up to this shooting on a social media account.
I have no understanding of the motive yet. I'm talking about a high-performing student who got inspired by another heinous act elsewhere in the world.
The Czech government announced that the man behind the attack had been eliminated.
And indeed, the Czech Republic is now in an official government-sponsored day of mourning for all those people who lost their lives, and indeed also were injured in that attack. The most important takeaway right now, says USA Today, is that there are a lot of people who are impacted by the tragedy who will be feeling reverberations of this for years to come. This, according to Jacqueline Schildkraut, the executive director of the Rockefeller Institute of Government's Regional Gun Violence Research Consortium. The group of gun violence researchers and practitioners provide policy recommendations to lawmakers in their effort to combat gun violence. It needs to be said that the Czech Republic's firearms laws are very close to the United States firearms laws. You can obtain and possess these weapons. The question is, will they retain those laws, or will they change them? The thing about that is this. Remember that the Czech Republic, formerly Czechoslovakia, has a totalitarian past. The people of Czechoslovakia do have access to firearms at this time. Do they actually act on it? Well, the people that would be independent enough or fiercely guard their freedom enough to actually be willing to defend themselves are not in as great numbers in the Czech Republic as there are in the United States. All of those people that had the guts to stand up for themselves were winnowed away during the totalitarian era of that country. That's one of the main differences between the Czech Republic and the United States of America. It would be thus easy for the government to make changes in gun laws. Now, their laws are, they already have to have a criminal background check. It's very much like getting a driver's license. You have to show proficiency and so on and so on. But you can't do anything about crazy people. You can't do anything about the insane that would be willing to take a gun to settle whatever grievance they might have. This was a former college student, 24 years of age. Just exactly what caused him to do this. We'll be paying attention and try to find out the motives soon.
Nobody wants to get ripped off, broken into, or robbed, but nobody wants to pay a lot of money to have their home protected either. I've got an offer to tell you about to provide home security for your home for less than $1 a day. For real, with no installation or equipment charges. And this is from a company rated #1 by a leading consumer research company. According to the facts, most of you won't even call unless there's a burglary in your neighborhood or something bad happened. So let's give you a reason. Save money. For less than $1 a day with no other costs, you can get your home secured. Plus, get a lifetime equipment replacement warranty. You need protection for your home. Call the Home Security Hotline right now.
Get your home secured for less than $1 a day, and every caller today immediately qualifies for free installation. Call now.
Call 877-275-0973. 877-275-0973. That's 877-275-0973.
If you're living with diabetes and using insulin, you know the pain of pricking your fingers over and over again. By wearing a small device called a continuous glucose monitor, or CGM, you can reduce the pain of pricking your fingers right away. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline today and learn about the latest CGM technology. Not only can a CGM immediately reduce pain, it's accurate, easy to use, and helps you make better diabetes treatment decisions. And if you have Medicare or private insurance, you can see if you qualify for a CGM at little or no out-of-pocket cost. We'll also provide free shipping of your new CGM, and we'll bill your insurance company for you. If you use insulin daily, you might be eligible to get your own continuous glucose monitor. So call the US Med Diabetic Health Hotline to see if you qualify for a CGM at little to no out-of-pocket cost. How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right, for about $50 a month, you'll get lightning fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back, but you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now.
Call 866-245-6155. That's 866-245-6155. Again, 866-245-6155. 866-245-6155.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
News, analysis, commentary, and debate. This is the Wells Report. I have not spent a single moment on our chat room today, so let's go back to where we were. Let's see here. Cowboy from Hell says a federal judge ruled Trump's attempts to subpoena what his legal team dubbed missing records from the House January 6th committee appeared to be a fishing expedition and was not in good faith. Okay, what do we know about the federal judge who did that? Remember, we did talk about the political implications of the judicial branch of our nation. Where did that come from? And it works both ways. There are federal judges that have done all kinds of things. There was a ruling we reported on here on the Wells Report that discussed a federal judge in California setting aside the carry laws of that state in what was probably political as well. Let's see. Cowboy says there were no lost records from the January 6th committee. Not true. They made a big deal out of it, in fact. Interviews, all kinds of materials just disappeared. But it's interesting that as the 2024 election season continues to unfold, we keep seeing pieces of it. Isn't that weird? Isn't that strange? So, yeah, you need to do some more research on that, Cowboy. By the way, thanks very much for your opinions, and thank you very much for the interaction. I appreciate it. So, there is reporting regarding the 2024 election that we ought to spend a little bit of time on. Support for Republican presidential candidate and former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley is surging in New Hampshire. This a month from the state's first in the nation's presidential primary. Almost a third of the Granite State voters likely to cast a ballot in the New Hampshire Republican primary named Haley as their preferred candidate in a St. Anselm College poll released this week. Haley has doubled her support in the state since September, this according to the poll's findings. She is 10 percentage points ahead of where she was in a November CNN University of New Hampshire survey. Okay, she had 10%, now she has 20%, according to one poll. Now, I'm not saying that that's not significant. It is. She's improving in New Hampshire. That's fine. However, there are problems that I'm going to bring up here in just a couple of moments from a standpoint of all those people talking about how Nikki Haley is surging. She's surging. It's a bad use of words. Just report the facts. Stop putting suggestive stuff. That's the bias and fact thing. Stop putting bias in your journalism. Just say that Nikki Haley has higher numbers now than she had before. Okay, the numbers have improved even. Okay, but surging as if there's momentum, and that is going to lead to a completely different thing than what we fear the most, which is Donald Trump winning. So there is. And one last thing about Nikki Haley. This also from USA Today. Nikki Haley knocks President Trump for praising dictators and adding trillions to the deficit. Nikki Haley is sharpening her criticism of her Republican opponents this week, accusing Donald Trump of cozying up to dictators. Quote, I think his policies were good, but if you look at what's happening now, the part that bothers me is our national security is at risk. What's he doing? He's praising dictators. Really? So what I want to point out on that is, Ms. Haley, that is a Democrat talking point. Why would you use Democrat talking points? Are you a Democrat? People are paying attention, which takes us seamlessly to the poll that they're talking about. This is not the St. Anselm poll. This is recent polling. I'm sorry, this is a different poll. This from CNN. Former President Donald Trump maintains a significant lead among likely voters in New Hampshire's Republican presidential primary. Former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley moved ahead of Trump's other rivals and holds second place. That's the way you report it. Just right there. And it's from CNN of all people, for crying out loud. This is a CNN poll conducted by the University of New Hampshire, not St. Anselm, but the University of New Hampshire. Trump's advantage in New Hampshire remains short of the majority support he garners in primary polling nationally. 42% say they would vote for him, followed by Haley at 20%, former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie at 14%, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis at 9%, Tech entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy at 8%. No other candidate holding more than 2% support. Haley's support has climbed 8 percentage points from the last CNN UNH poll in September, with Ramaswamy dipping 5 points and support for Trump, Christie, and DeSantis remaining relatively steady. The survey finds that Trump's standing in New Hampshire is boosted by majority support among registered Republicans. 55% back him, 17% Haley, 11% DeSantis, while undeclared voters, those who are not registered with either party but say they are likely to vote in the Republican primary, are split between Haley at 25% and Trump at 24%, with Christie also at 24%. So yeah, this polling it's important. It's true. It goes on to say that undeclared voters who can choose which party's primary to vote in make up about 43% of likely GOP primary voters in the new poll. That's roughly the same as their share of the GOP primary electorate in 2012, the last time there was a competitive Republican primary with an incumbent Democrat president seeking re-election, but a larger share than the 36% they represented in the 2016 primary when Trump made his first run at the presidency, according to CNN exit polls. New Hampshire Secretary of State David Scanlon announced Wednesday of this week the nation's first in the nation primary would be held on January 23rd, this a week after the Iowa caucuses kick off the GOP nomination contest. There's been a sharp increase since September in the share of likely Granite State Republican voters who say their vote is locked in. 36% of them in September say they have definitely decided. Now 52% say their minds are made up. More than 8 in 10 Trump supporters, 83%, say their choice is definite, compared to 29% who back other candidates, including roughly a quarter of Haley supporters, 27%, and Christie's backers at 25%. For his part, Chris Christie remains the candidate who likely Republican primary voters in New Hampshire most often say they would never support. Oh, ow, that hurts. 47% say they would never back him, 15 points ahead of the 32% who feel that way about Trump. Yet that reflects a softening in views toward the former New Jersey governor, or at least in the voters' definition of never. In September, 60% of Republican primary voters said they would never support him. Republican primary voters aren't buying the electability argument some rivals have made against Trump. 57% say the former president has the best shot of winning the general election this year. That's up from 51% who said so in September, and significantly higher than his overall support in the primary. Nearly 2/3 of likely GOP primary voters, 63%, say they'd be least satisfied with Trump as the nominee, greater than the share they said about any other major candidate. Still, those who are not current Trump supporters express mostly negative views about the idea of a Trump nomination. While 38% would be at least satisfied, 59% would be dissatisfied or angry about it. Overall, according to the CNN poll, a majority of likely Republican primary voters, 54%, would feel at least satisfied should Haley become the nominee. Haley narrowly outpaces Trump on this particular score among voters who are registered undeclared. 50% of this group would be satisfied should she become the nominee. 44% would be Trump, and considering the sample size, that's probably a dead heat. Overall, about half of likely GOP primary voters, 49%, say they would be at least satisfied with DeSantis at the top of the ticket, 44% with Ramaswamy, and 32% with Christie. So this polling is kind of all over the board, but it does make sense. I mean, there is this very basic idea that all of these conflicting or seemingly conflicting pieces of data among the candidates, that bespeaks a fair polling. Here are the technical pieces of information you need to know about this poll. The CNN New Hampshire poll was conducted online November 10th through the 14th by the University of New Hampshire Survey Center. Results among the 841 likely primary and voters surveyed have a margin of sampling error plus or minus 3.1 percentage points. It usually takes about 1,200 people, somewhere around 1,200 people. That's the sweet spot for polling to create a mini universe. In other words, how statistics work when you're trying to do a poll, you first determine who you're going to poll, likely voters in this case. And then what you do is you create the same percentages in a smaller group of people. You can't survey everybody in New Hampshire. But what you can do is you can take these subcategories and you can represent percentages of those subcategories in a smaller universe and then survey them. 841, not enough. I disagree with their idea that the plus or minus is only 3.1 percentage points, because that's just not real. It's bigger than that. It's somewhere around, hovering between like 4.7 or 5.2, somewhere in that vicinity with that small of a sample size. This is just information that I learned when I studied statistics as if it was a religion, when we were trying to figure out how we could get better ratings on radio stations where I worked. And so that's where this information comes from. Now those are just rough estimates. Those are just ballpark figures that I'm looking at. I'm not disputing the actual percentages of the polls. I really don't have any problem with that. All I can say is that like I said, this poll seems to ring at least understandable. Okay, so let's go back to some of this other polling information because it's interesting. Trump's New Hampshire supporters overwhelmingly call him honest. Few not backing him in the primary agree. Okay. A share of likely voters of the New Hampshire GOP primary electorate who rate Donald Trump as very good or good in key attributes. Policy positions on major issues. Among those people who are likely voters, policy positions on major issues, 97% think that Trump Trump supporters believe that he has good ideas. Those not supporting Trump, still very good number, 46%. When it comes to decision making, Trump supporters value the president's decision making, the former president's decision making, 97%. Those against not supporting Trump, 42%, still a very good number. Communication skills. Those people supporting Trump say that 86% of what he says makes sense to them. There's a dip in those people not supporting Trump. They say only 30% of what he says makes any difference to them. And that is something that I have criticized former President Trump about a lot. His communication needs an overhaul. It's not because what he says is lunacy or crazy or stupid or just plain wrong. It's the fact that he keeps garnishing everything he says with all this other stuff where he's just riffing off script. And he keeps handing out ammunition to his enemies, like this dictator thing. You know, he talks about these strong leaders of other nations that are either actually dictators or, for political reasons, reported in the mainstream media as dictators. Two completely different groups. And so he keeps talking about things he admires about them. Like, for example, drug dealers in China. He says that Xi Jinping has a better law than here in the United States because they just shoot them. Drug dealers, they get caught, they're dead. All right. You can say that's draconian if you want to, but President Trump points that out. Well, my God, he's cozying up to Xi Jinping. Donald Trump is a lackey of a Chinese communist leader. And then, of course, you point out, what about that money from China to Hunter and President Biden and China policy? Is there anything wrong there? And they go, yeah. Getting back to the poll and how Trump supporters versus people who don't support Trump believe communication. Mr. President, for God's sakes, if you want to be the president again, would you please start acting and communicating like a president? Stop throwing these little trolling moments out to the mainstream media and the left. How about if you do that? Please just speak about your policies. Speak as if you're already the president. You have been once. We'll just pick that mantle up and just start talking about national issues. Ignore everybody else. You're out in front, not just against your primary opponents. but in the general election too. Start acting like it. Start talking about your policies. Start talking about how you've done good things for the country, extol those, and talk about what you want to do to move forward. And while you certainly have to bring up the dismantlement of the deep state, don't dwell on it too much. Just do it. Just do it. If you're the president again, just take care of it. You don't have to be revengeful or vengeful. You don't have to be vengeful. All you have to do is you have to just take care of the problem. Objectively, benevolently, honestly, etc. This is the Wells Report. John David Wells, thank you very much for being with us. We have some programming notes coming up in just a couple of moments, so stick around for those. And also, we've got one more thing to discuss, and we'll do that next as we continue here on the Wells Report.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
Call 877-512-3895. That's 877-512-3895. 877-512-3895.
How would you like to get high-speed internet for your home for less than $2 a day? That's right, for about $50 a month, you'll get lightning-fast internet. Are you paying less than $50 a month right now for your internet? Then call Whole Home Connect right now for blazing fast internet at $50 a month with no price increases, no hidden fees, no contracts, no equipment fees. It's a great deal. And guess what? You can try it for 15 days. If you don't like it, you get your money back, but you're gonna love it, and you're gonna love the price. Internet for your home for $50 a month. That's less than $2 a day. Plus, no contracts, no equipment fees, and our 15-day guarantee. Call now.
Call 866-245-6155. That's 866-245-6155. Again, 866-245-6155. 866-245-6155.
This is the Wells Report. Thanks very much for being a part of our broadcast today. If you like this show, share it with your friends. Subscribe to it. Hit the little notification button so you know when we're on the air. And give us thumbs ups. Those matter. We would appreciate it. If you'd like to support the show financially, please go to Patreon. You can subscribe and you can throw a couple of bucks at us every month if you want to. That goes a long way on this broadcast. I will tell you that as complete truth, okay? It really helps us out. Thank you. It is the Wells Report. Before we go, parting shots now as they headed out the door. House Speaker, or as he headed out the door, House Speaker Mike Johnson urged President Joe Biden to overhaul federal border control policies and return to Trump-era asylum standards in a letter sent on Thursday. This was reported on by Ed O'Keefe from CBS News. Let's take a look at that report here on the Wells Report.
The speaker's calling on them to restore things like what's called the Remain in Mexico policy, or forcing those seeking asylum in the U.S. to stay in Mexico until they get a hearing, to round up migrants who may have arrived recently but are not seeking asylum and send them back to their country, and to effectively shut the border or seal it off by resuming construction of the border wall. What's happening here is the speaker is laying out the markers for the White House and for the Senate as it continues to work on that bipartisan border and immigration policy agreement that's part of that larger Ukraine and Israel security funding package, and saying, this is where my conference is at. If you can't meet these general parameters through your executive actions and don't do them, then you cannot expect us necessarily to approve whatever it is you may be cooking up with Democrats and Republicans in the Senate.
O'Keefe is referring to Ukrainian aid. The Republican Party caucus in the House of Representatives has tied Ukrainian aid to more security for the southern border. And there are pretty good assertions, or at least proposals, in the speaker's letter. The wide open border has caused unspeakable human tragedy for migrants and certainly for our citizens. All this is a direct result of your administration's policies. He asked President Biden to take executive actions to end a policy that allows migrants to be released on parole without court dates, to renew construction of the border wall, to turn back or detain all undocumented immigrants between ports of entry. That's doable. That is absolutely doable. And to work with Mexico to restart a program that keeps asylum seekers in that country while they await processing in the U.S. The crisis at our southern border has deteriorated to such an extent that significant action can wait no longer. It must start now, and it must start with you, according to the Speaker of the House. We all live in border states now. Fentanyl has made that possible. And indeed, we do need to stop this onslaught of people from the third world coming to the United States with nothing more than the word indigent attached to their names. Yeah, things are bad in their countries. That's why they're coming here. And if I lived just outside or just at the foot of the shining city on the hill, I'd try to figure out how to get in here too. But I would do it legally. But these people don't have to. And that's because of President Biden. And he needs to fix it. Let's hope he does. This is the final broadcast of the Wells Report for the year 2023. It is Christmas time. And every year, I enjoy the Christmas present given to me by you and the people who have worked so hard on this broadcast along with me. Specifically, Jube Dankworth of Net Media Consultants. Net Media Consultants is a publicity firm. If you need publicity, go to netmediaconsultants.com and deal with Jube. I'll tell you, she's been doing this free of charge to me because she believes in this broadcast. Just like you. You pay attention to this broadcast because you believe in it as well. It's only made possible by my wife, Susan, who believes in this broadcast so much so that she has, for the last year and a half, supported this broadcast financially and otherwise. And all of these gifts, especially yours, are cherished by me. Cherished. There have been people that stood up and gave us money. I was just talking about Patreon and how people have subscribed to the broadcast on Patreon and throw a couple of bucks at us every year. And that has happened throughout this entire year. Our broadcast will return on January 2nd, and we will indeed do what we have always done. We will report the news honestly and fairly. We'll analyze the news for fact and bias, and we'll point out both. We will make commentary, which is opinion, yours and mine, and we will debate those opinions. We'll do that as long as we possibly can. They say that when you do a broadcast like this, it takes a couple of years for things to get rolling. Well, we're closing in on it. June 2nd will be the anniversary of this podcast. And I hope that that the money begins to roll in at some point. And I guarantee you, my wife Susan hopes so too. I'd like to keep doing this show. I'm very proud of it. I'm proud of the people that have worked on it. I forgot one, and I can't forget him. He is the executive producer of this broadcast. His name is Dirk Steele. He works at Steel Boy Productions in Denver, Colorado. The technical things that you see on this broadcast, not the ones that go wrong, that's on me. But Dirk Steele added immeasurably to this broadcast in the year 2023. This guy is a broadcast superstar, and he took time out of his life to make this a better broadcast. God bless you, Dirk. God bless you, Jube. God bless you, Susan. God bless you, the people who listen to this broadcast. Have a Merry, Merry Christmas. I hope you get everything you want, and I'll see you back January 2nd for another edition of the Wells Report. Well, alrighty then. Okay. Thank you very much, Yvonne. I'm glad you heard that. I appreciate you so much. And everybody, Eddie Jones, Art Davenport, Artie, thanks very much for showing up. It's always good to have you here when you join us. Susan Bunce Wachtel, it's good to have you back. We enjoy your commentary. She said earlier today, the leftist Dems have overplayed their hand. They're driving people to vote for Trump, even those who didn't vote for Trump previously. Reasonable people know if the left does this to one of the most powerful people in the world, what will they do with ordinary folk? The answer is, Susan, as you know, anything they want. Anything they want. So let's see. Jess, Michelle Larrabee, thanks very much for the Happy Friday wishes. I appreciate it. All you guys, you have made it possible for me to show up every day and know that I share this broadcast in real time with lots of people, and I do. There are a lot of people that watch this on Rumble and watch it on X and watch it on Twitch and also YouTube and Facebook. And while they don't necessarily check in or can't for whatever reason, we're working out those technical issues, I know they're there because I see the numbers. And I appreciate it. This has not been a bad year for the Wells Report. This show is building. It should. And I'm not saying that because I'm inordinately proud of it and it's a statement of ego. It's more a recognition of the gift given by people who pay attention to this broadcast. God bless all of you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this 2023. I look forward to seeing you January 2nd. Until then, be safe. Make good decisions. Love yourselves and your family. Make sure that everybody gets taken care of as best you possibly can. And we'll see you again next year. Thanks again so very much. Merry Christmas.